Hey, welcome to another edition of the Pilot's Advisor. On today's show, we're going to make sure that you never stop asking, how do you know? Or maybe when you were a little kid, it was just that question, why? Asking that over and over again. We're going to ask why and how do you know about some really important retirement planning questions today. We're going to talk to you about why they're so important to ask, especially if you're a pilot. These are going to be some really central questions to your retirement planning. So let's dive in. I'll grab Ryan and we'll get started. Ryan, my friend, back on the podcast once again. Great to see you. Welcome back to the Pilot's Advisor, of course. Looking forward to our show today, but man, it's gearing up to be our favorite time of year. Football's around the corner. You must be excited for Air Force's season and all sorts of good stuff on the docket.
Well, I'm absolutely excited for football season. I love college football. It's proven to be this Labor Day weekend is going to be awesome. We'll see how Air Force's team is. We lost quite a bit. But more importantly, that's a pretty cool hat.
Look at this thing. Boom.
Yeah. Looks good on you too, Walter.
I love my Pilot's Advisor swag. We've got the cup that you gave me. It's right there in the gym now. So in the garage gym, ready to go. So
well, next time you got to make sure you're sipping coffee off the cup when we're doing our next podcast.
That's true. Yeah.
I pay Walter good money to sport
a metal cup from my old paper cups. You know?
Well, and I have just a normal coffee cup today.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. What's been going on with you, my friend? Catch us up to date.
Not a whole lot. I mean, my kids are back in school, constant sports. So we're kind of back in that routine. But it's been a very, very busy summer. I expect the market to probably be a bumpy road through the election. Yeah. Just lots going on right now. So how about yourself?
Hard to keep all of it in front of you, isn't it? We've gotten out into the mountains a little bit this summer. So did a little whitewater rafting, which was pretty fun. Did a little bit of rock climbing. That was a new experience for us. So ended up, my wife needed to bail about halfway through the rock climbing experience. But what she did not realize was that meant she was going to also get a rappelling experience out of it. So
nice.
I kind of feel like we made out with a little extra experience there, which was kind of fun, actually.
Yeah, actually, my son and I woke up one Saturday morning and we went and hiked Table Rock, which is a famous, hike there in North Carolina, just across the border from where we are. And, no problem got through it, but just, it just makes me realize every year, I lift weights and do a lot of things, but just not getting your heart rate up enough, and just not nearly in shape like I used to be, which kind of sucks, but I guess that's a part about getting old.
Yep, kind of just comes with the territory, unfortunately. And but it sounds like you've had a busy summer and ready to kind of get back into the groove in the fall. Do you like kind of turning that page and getting back into a more normal routine when everybody's back in school and work kind of normalizes a little bit?
Well, absolutely. I'm definitely a creature of habit. Not necessarily, I don't like having a hard, rigid schedule, but I like to work. And of course, the fall is one of my favorite times because of, football season. I mean, who doesn't like college football? And even if it's background noise on the weekends or Thursday night, I just like having the games on. It's exciting.
Yes.
Something that I'm truly passionate about. And so, no, it's that time. It's now the problem is too, all your raving fans have been asking for another podcast episode. I mean, I did a couple with Lee Hyder, and they're like, Lee's funny and all that. He's not very good looking. We need that eye candy back. Where's that Walter guy at? And he also has that amazing voice. And we get that amazing voice back. So they've been asking for Walter.
The voice and the quarter zips. I know the fans miss that a little bit. So.
What you got for me today? What questions are you going to hit me with to put me on the spot in front of my clients?
Well, let's do it, man. Let's dive in. So our topic, as we talked about, how do you know certain things in the financial world, and why are these questions even that important to ask? And so we've got a big list of these questions. And were you that kind of kid, Ryan, when you were growing up? Were you always asking your parents why, and you just keep asking why until whoever you're asking why to just runs out of patience and says, okay, that's enough. Stop it.
I don't think I was one of those kids. I mean, we all know that kid for sure. I think I was more where I'd sit back and my eyes were open and I was constantly observing. I think one of the things I did really well growing up was trying to learn from others' mistakes. where I didn't have to make them my own. Now, granted, I've definitely screwed up here and there, but I really tried to watch what others did, and no different than this industry. When I got into this industry back in '08, I went out and interviewed all the best financial advisors I could find, trying to learn from their mistakes, and no different than leadership in the military. You take what you like from certain individuals and you get rid of what you don't like. And over time, that develops into what kind of advisor you want to be and how you want to help your clients. And, I also look at life this way, where if you're not in that mood of constant improvement and constantly trying to find a better way, you're going to get left behind. And I think that's true with this industry. I think I've watched a lot of older advisors not embrace technology, not embrace the new systems, not embrace ETFs, or as this industry evolves. So constantly learning. You're never done with school. I mean, that's just the way
Yeah.
life is.
I would imagine it's the same thing with flying, right? If you're not constantly keeping up with newest technologies and procedures and policies and all those kinds of things, you'll get left behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, modernizing aircraft, modernizing the fleet, avionics. It's like anything else in life, it evolves.
Yeah, that's we used to do it that way, but there's things have changed a little bit. So this is the more accepted practice now.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll see that resonate maybe in some of these questions as well, because a lot of people plan for retirement by just kind of assuming old, possibly outdated ways of doing things. Hey, this is the way my grandparents or my parents did it, or even hey, this is how my brother did it when he retired 10 years ago. Well, things may be even a little bit different in that short of a timeline for your situation, and so that's why these questions we're going to hit over the next couple of minutes, I think, are really important. So each one's going to start off with how do you know? And you give us the insight here, Ryan. So the first one is how do you know how much income you'll need when you retire? Why is that such an important how do you know question?
Well, first of all, you don't know. I mean, like I'm sure all these questions that you're going to ask me, that it's going to be a gray area because there's lots of unknowns. And with financial planning, we have some rules of thumb in this industry that we go by. But think about all the unknowns. What's inflation going to look like? What's healthcare going to be like in retirement? How much are cars going to cost? Because we've watched over the last 3 years really a drastic increase in how much things cost. The general rule of thumb, though, is 80% of what your current income is what most people plan for in retirement. You also got to take into account that you're going to have the go-go years where you're traveling a lot before the no-go years. So your money's going to shift on what you're spending it on, from maybe travel and transportation to more going to the doctor and the extra expenses for getting things done. And maybe that mortgage is going to get paid off at some point, or most of the time, once you go into retirement, you stop that portion of your income that you're normally investing each month. Well, that stops because now you're going to start the distribution phase of retirement. So I get asked this question a lot, like, what is the number? What number do I look for? And my answer is it really depends, because it really depends on what your budget looks like, how much you spend. I mean, I have a Delta pilots, we'll say, or FedEx pilots. Their lives are so different on how they spend. Some live big, some don't live big at all. And so that number is truly different for everyone. But in short, 80% of whatever your current income is that you're living off of is a good wag. And if any of my clients or prospects want to discuss this and dig into their individual lives, we can talk about that and kind of help them out.
Yeah, I think that's big. You're saying if someone wants to know how much income they're going to need when they retire, you've really got to kind of reverse engineer this thing. Like yes, that's an important question, but we're going to have to answer 20 other questions to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Taxes, inflation. Yeah, I mean, and that's where you got to make a lot of assumptions. We're going to make this assumption of what we think that's going to be, but then of course the world happens and we have to adjust accordingly.
Yeah. Some of these questions will be more specific, like this next one. How do you know how much money that you should have in your savings account? That's going to kind of vary from person to person, but the method to get to that answer, I feel like, is going to also vary a little bit depending on someone's thoughts, feelings, and what makes them comfortable.
Well, absolutely. And I'm a little opinionated with this, and I'll go on my rant.
Okay.
We always talk about emergency savings. I have to have this much for my emergency fund. And I think a lot of that goes back to the education of Dave Ramsey. A lot of people listen to Dave Ramsey, which is great. I think he helps a lot of people that are in massive credit card debt try to get their arms around things. but I don't think that's my average client. Okay. Dave Ramsey's clients are in massive credit card debt and they make $60,000 a year. That's not an airline pilot. So when I look at it, I go, okay, you have a very secure job unless you screw something up. Let's let your money work for you. If you have all this money sitting in a savings account, you're going broke very, very safely versus playing the long-term game of building true wealth. Let that money work for you. And at some point, you're going to have a lot more in that personal investment account that is still liquid. And whether it goes up 10% or not, you still have plenty of money for an emergency fund. So let's let that money work for you. I mean, the market's up 3 out of every 4 years on average. Let's play the long-term game. And rather than getting that 4 or 5% high yield savings account return, I mean, let's get to our 8 to 12% over the long term. Because it's going to have a massive effect on how comfortable you're going to be in retirement by letting your money work for you while you're young.
Yeah, and that 4 to 5% wasn't even that for many years, not even close to it, right?
Well,
That's just
exactly, and that's only that's only like people look at that 4 or 5% and they get all excited, like, oh, I can make guaranteed 5% in a high yield savings account. I mean, I've never heard high yield savings account more in my life than I have over the past year and a half.
interesting.
And that is a direct result of what the cost of capital is right now. Okay. They're only giving you that because they have to. And that's where the inflation rate was. That's where the cost of capital is. So you're still breaking even.
Yeah.
You're not gaining anything at that point. You're still going broke very safely.
It's a bit of fool's gold.
Absolutely.
Attention aviators, when you've spent years in the cockpit managing the complexities of flight, isn't it time you navigated your retirement with the same precision? Introducing retirepilots.com. Right at your touchdown zone on our homepage, there's a beacon flashing, "Get my free toolkit." Click that and you'll be cleared for a direct route to Ryan's retirement toolkit, tailor-made for pilots like you. Inside, you'll find 2 of his important works, The Pilot's Advisor and Pilots Retire Early. Between these 2 books, you can decipher the 9 critical decisions when retiring before 65 and discover the 7 lessons to help pilots land safely in retirement. But that's not all. This toolkit is packed with altitude-high value, including extras to get your retirement plans off the runway and light the afterburners on your 401k. Vector on over to retirepilots.com to grab your toolkit, and let's embark on this journey together. How do you know how much risk you should be taking with your investments? Another one that's there's a dollar answer and then there's an emotional answer to that.
Well, I always think this is funny because a lot of people think they have a growth risk profile.
Okay.
The first thing I'll say is you got to find out what your risk profile is, take a couple tests, what have you. But what I've found over being in this industry is everybody thinks they're a growth or aggressive until the market dumps 15% and then they don't like it at all. Right. And but nobody ever calls me when the market's up 20% and things are really good going, hey, this is getting a little out of line. I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable. Can we take some money off the table? It just doesn't happen. And I joke all the time about how pilots want their cake and they want to eat it too. They want all of the upside and none of the downside. And so it's really funny to deal with individuals working through this based off of what's going on in the market. And so I think this is something that needs to be a good conversation with a client and an advisor and really get on the same page, especially as the markets change. And if your risk profile can change,
Where does that conversation go, Ryan? I mean, if somebody's out of whack, do you try to get them emotionally on board with being riskier? Or do you say, okay, we've actually discovered you don't want as much risk, so we're going to peel back how much risk you're taking? Which way do people typically get led?
Well, I think, I'm probably different than a lot of advisors. There's a lot of studies out there that people are not retiring with enough money. Okay. They're not ready for retirement. And what they found out is people are not aggressive enough in their younger years to let that wealth build and grow for them. I find myself counseling individuals that have less of a risk. They're not as risky or as aggressive, and having to explain to them that, hey, this is a qualified investment account. You can't touch it to your 59 and a half anyway. You have time. Let this money work for you. And at the same time, as somebody gets closer to retirement and we look at the time horizon for their money, we have to start looking at how many market cycles they have time to go through. Yes, because at some point you want to have less volatility in your portfolio. especially if you haven't come up with a plan to eliminate sequence of returns risk. Now, my clients and I have a plan for this to where we can leave the throttles up on their qualified accounts or their 401k because we have safe money assets. And this is a whole nother conversation, but you want to get to a point by the time you're in retirement where you don't care if the market's up or down. You have a way to produce income, and sequence of returns risk is a big deal, and you have to plan for it. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yep, good points. All right, so we've talked about risk, savings accounts, income. Let's talk fees. How do you know if the fees in your portfolio are too high?
So I think this is a great question because I feel like I deal with this quite a bit now. There's a lot more technology out there that is getting better than average returns by doing things differently than we have in the past. I 100% agree that fees and expense ratios matter. They do. Okay. You want to be conscious of fees and expense ratios. If you're a do it yourselfer, absolutely. If you want to go invest in a Vanguard ETF model that gives you 6 basis points or 10 basis points expense ratio, fine. But you're going to get average returns. I mean, you are. So, what you really need to do is look at net of fee returns. Whatever portfolio you invest in, great, that's fine, but get a net of fee return, okay? And then compare it to another portfolio that might have much higher fees. Let's say it's 2%, which is a really, really big expense ratio. But if on average you're getting 3 or 4% more return net of fees, who cares what the fee is? You're getting 3 or 4% more return on average every single year. And I can tell you right now, that 2 to 3 or 4% difference is going to produce you a whole different retirement picture because of it compounding annually.
So it's
So
really a conversation of there's way too much attention put on total of the fees and not on the value. That's where people's attention really needs to be.
yeah, not on the results.
Yeah.
I get that we want to talk about how the donuts are made, but ultimately what really matters is how much return you're getting on your money in a portfolio net of fees, meaning take all that out, what actually happened. And if you look at it that way, it's a perfect apples to apples comparison because I call it the IQ test. I hope people would be willing to pay 1 or 2% more to get 4 or 5% more return. And the numbers don't lie. If you can look at a whole track record of outperforming, then you'd be willing to pay an extra percentage point or what have you to get extra return, or you just don't understand how this works.
Yeah. Good points. All right. Here's another one, Ryan. How do you know if an advisor is a good fit for you or not?
I I think this is a good thing for every prospect out there to look at and think about. When I set up a meeting and I have a Zoom call with a client, they think they're interviewing me. And that's not the case at all. I'm actually interviewing them to see if they're a good fit for me and if I can work together with them. So I think yes, there's lots of things you should look at. I think you definitely want to work with somebody that's a fiduciary. I definitely think that you want to work with somebody that is a fee based advisor. I definitely think you should work with somebody that knows your industry, knows your 401k plans. And I think that's the beauty of the pilot's advisor. I mean, I'm retired military, I'm an airline pilot. Like, I get it. I live that lifestyle. I can speak that language, and I think it works well for a lot of my clients. But after that, it comes down to a feel thing. I mean, no different than you finding that person that you want to marry or spend your life with. It's a big decision, but a lot of it is, yeah, you can mark off all these things that are requirements for you, but at the end of the day, you got to sit back and go, does it feel right? And any advisor that you have out there, at least in my position with my clients, I mean, I'm talking them off the ledge quite, at times. I'm having conversations with their spouses and about life issues. So you need to
Yeah.
be able to talk about it.
People's medical situations that have
Oh,
financial impacts. You're getting pretty intimate details about people's lives.
absolutely. And life happens and they come to you when life happens to get solutions. And I think growing up or even in today's society, there's a stigma about not being able to talk about money. Well, guess what? It is tied to everything that happens. Every little situation of life that happens involves how much liquid security you have. How are we going to fix the problem? Or, as a very wise man said to me once, 98% of all the problems out there can be fixed with money. Okay. But be very clear on what that 2% is that can't be fixed with money. Okay. And I think everybody can understand what I'm saying. But being more financially secure and talking about money and talking about building your wealth actually reduces a lot of stress when bad things happen.
Yeah. That's huge. I'm curious, Ryan, if we can pause here for a moment and just kind of focus in on this question a little bit more. We've talked about how to know if an advisor is a good fit for you or not. You brought up the fact that it's that two-way street. So when you are meeting with a client initially and having that first conversation, what are some of the things that you're looking for to say, "Hey, we are a good fit to work with one another"? What does your good fit client look like?
I think like we discussed, it has to feel right from both sides of the table. Being able to talk, I want somebody that's coachable. Um, if I get on a Zoom call with somebody and they already know everything, then they don't need me. Whether they're right or not, they don't need me. But it's the best clients are the ones out there that they realize, hey, I'm a pilot. I don't know what I'm doing here. Can you help me out? Can you show me a better way? And what I do, it's unemotional. I show them a better way via numbers because the numbers don't lie. And if I can show them that I can add value and show them via numbers, then it's easy, and we both know that we're on the same page and we can move forward. But when I get on a Zoom call and I'm with a client and I'm asking them about their situation, and I'm sitting there for 30 minutes later and I haven't said two words, I'll listen to you, but that tells me right there that you probably have this all figured out, or you're not going to be coachable. I had an individual the other day that I'm going to share because I thought this was pretty wild. This individual was in their mid 50s, airline pilot at a legacy carrier, and had about $200,000 to his name. And I have to be honest and say you're way, way behind on saving for retirement because my job as a fiduciary, if I'm going to work with somebody, is I have to be honest with them, and sometimes I call that tough love. And the conversation kept coming back to him going on a diatribe for 10 minutes about living life too. Like focusing on, well, yeah, but I'm living life, and I go, well, that's fine, but you're going to have a huge wake up call when you can't fly anymore, and next thing you know, your family's not even remotely living the lifestyle that you are right now. And I don't think the average person out there has a clue how much they truly have to save for retirement, and it's scary because a lot of people are not even prepared for retirement at all. Pensions are gone now, except for a couple airlines. And so you have to save every penny you have. And then once you're done, and you got to hope for the best. And sadly, I think that's why there's a lot of people out there in retirement working at Walmart or still working at that second job or that second career.
And that would be sad for someone who is a pilot to fall into that routine because you're right. Make good income, good money, good opportunities to save, and you should be able to retire on your terms. And so, just proper planning is going to help you get you there. And sometimes people need to hear that tough love, Ryan, and that honest feedback. And I guess if they're not receptive to that, that's not going to be a good fit for you.
Well, I can't save everyone. I'm in this business because I realized early on not only that I truly feel like I can change people's lives by helping them start early and plan, and then they're in control in their 50s and have control when they can retire and how much work versus knowing that you got to still play catch up. The biggest factor in any of this is time. Okay, but once the time factor is not on your side, you're behind the power curve. You're not at L over D max anymore. And to talk numbers, I mean, I think we should put some numbers out there. $1 million saved at a safe withdrawal rate is only going to give you about $50,000 of income per year. And we're not even really talking about taxes yet because we don't know what those tax rates are going to look like. And right now, I don't think we're going in a positive direction with tax rates. So think about that pilot that is making $300,000 a year right now, the lifestyle that he's living. Okay. And I'm going to put you on the spot here, Walter. $1 million for every 50 grand. How much would that actually take to keep that lifestyle up?
Oh my gosh! I mean, we're talking about cutting six times into our normal living salary that we now have to make an adjustment from.
Yeah, I mean, so and of course, this is at a safe withdrawal rate. It's a little bit conservative, so you don't run out of money over a 30-year period. But that's $5 or $6 million that you have to have saved. And when somebody hears that, they go, "Boom! Whoa! Ouch! What?" But that same lifestyle, that same income, assuming now, of course, we're going to have to add Social Security in there, whatever that looks
Yeah.
like. And if you have a pension or if you have a military pension, those are all baselines. But the far majority of individuals have no clue how much they truly have to have saved to live off of and have that income to sustain that lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, this is why that just points right back to number one, right? With how much income do I need? Well, you've got to answer these other, well, we only covered kind of four additional questions on the show today, but we could have listed out another 20 questions that you've got to answer before you really get to knowing exactly what you need to retire, what it's all going to look like, how the withdrawals are going to happen. But none of that happens unless you do the planning and get that understanding and that surety and how your financial future is going to look like. And so,
Well, and one thing I'll definitely say, I think
yeah,
most pilots know they have to save for retirement. They get that, but they don't understand how the distribution phase works at all. And those little details and those decisions you're making today
yeah.
and the decisions you're making in your 401k really matter, have a massive impact. And I think that's why it's so paramount that you work with an advisor, somebody that understands your 401k and your lifestyle, because the earlier you plan and start looking at these things, the better off you're going to be in retirement. Don't call me when you're 62 and walking out the door, because it doesn't work. We got a big mess and we don't have time to clean it up.
Well, don't forget to like and subscribe this video if you found it helpful. Ryan is the pilot's advisor. He's helping pilots each and every day get to and through retirement, answering key questions, working with them to set up a solid retirement plan. If you'd like to engage, learn a little bit more, here is really the one step that you need to take. It is to go to retirepilots.com and download, order the free retirement toolkit, packed with guides, information, research, and helpful resources to help you learn a little bit more about what it's going to take to retire successfully. And then you can take the conversation with Ryan from there. But that's the great first step that everybody takes. Go to retirepilots.com and order that free retirement toolkit. Ryan, great episode. Appreciate your guidance, my friend. And we will be talking to you again in a couple of weeks.
Safe travels, Walter. Thanks for waking up early.
You got it. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time right here on The Pilot's Advisor.